Hi everyone, welcome if you're new here, and if you're not, welcome back. I'm going to be playing with a Simon Says stamp card kit in today's video. This kit is their October Club kit and it's called Sunflowers and Daisies. I love creating cards that include flowers, and so I had to pick this one up. I don't purchase every single kit every single month from Simon Says Stamp. They're all fabulous, but I just don't have a lot of time on my hands to do one every single month. So here's the kit, and let me quickly show you what is included. You saw the little pouch there. I love that they're including pouches. I use them in my craft room. They're so fabulous. So this kit comes with a couple of ink pads. I love their small blender brushes. You get some tags, and some really thick twine. I didn't use this on my cards. It's just a bit too thick, but for other projects it would be fabulous. You get a couple of mini slimline envelopes, a black one and a cream one. Next up is an embossing folder. This one is called Fresh Daisies. This one is so gorgeous. You can kind of see what it looks like there on the back of the packaging. This is the perfect size for an A2 sized card. Let me hold up this black envelope so you can get a better idea of what it looks like. You could create a mini slimline card with it as well, I'm sure. And then you get a stencil that goes with the stamp set. And what I loved the most about this card kit was that gorgeous cluster of flowers there you see at the bottom. It's such a huge stamp, but I loved those sunflowers. Here's the example page. They have some really beautiful inspiration of what you can do with this kit. And then you get some nice heavyweight cardstock in burnt orange, cream, I think that's leaf green, and sunshine. I'm going to be creating 5 cards with this kit, and I'm going to start out with something really simple. So I have a panel that I cut out with some Spellbinders dies. These are called fluted edge rectangles. And this is going to be the perfect size for the single sunflower image from the stamp set. This is a piece of their cream cardstock. I'm going to use my mini Misty to stamp this out. And I'll pull out this single flower. For my first card, I like to start out with something simple just to warm up my creative juices and get started. So I thought this would look really elegant just on a smaller panel. I'll stamp it out with some dark brown ink called Fallen Leaves. And it stamps out shadows for you. So you don't have to do a lot of shading on this because the ink does it all for you. I only had to ink it up once. I pulled out my Polychromos pencils and I'll use a few of these to quickly color this in. Again, it goes really fast because there's not a lot to color in. The ink covers up most of it, but I just wanted to put in a touch of yellow. I'm just quickly going over each petal. I'm not bringing the pencil all the way out to the tips of the flowers. I'm allowing some of the cream color to show through. And then I'll use a green on the leaves and the stem. Then I'll come in with a darker color just to add a little touch of shading, as well as a darker orange to put down at the base of each petal. This just gives the flower a little more life. Next, I'll stamp out the sentiment, and this is going to be a thank you card. I'll just stamp that to the side of the flower. And then it looked just a little too simple or bare for me. So I'm going to pull out some twine and wrap this under the sentiment. Twine can do a lot for your cards. I love using twine or ribbon. And this is the twine that came with the tags. I'm going to just tape the twine in place on the back so it doesn't shift too much. This is a piece of double-sided adhesive. And then I use some foam strips to pop this up off of the sunshine cardstock. And then this is where I decided to add something more, and I'm not certain I like the effect of this vintage photo distress oxide ink. does make it look a little more vintage, but I wasn't sure if I was happy with this or not. I just kept going. And I'm just going along the edges. I don't know if this makes it look dirty or vintage, but anyway, I had fun creating this card. And then I'll center it on the Yellow Sunshine cardstock. I'll use some liquid glue to attach this to a card base. And then for a touch of bling, I'm going to add some sequins. These are called gold discs. They're from Spellbinders. I love these because they don't have a hole in the middle. I'm just putting 3 of them around the sentiment. And here's a close-up look at card number 1. I really love how these images have been drawn. They're all so beautiful. On card number 2, I'm going to pull out this huge sunflower cluster stamp. And I'm using another piece of the cream cardstock. I'm going to stamp it right in the middle. I'm using the brown ink again. And I had to bust out my larger MISTI for this because it wouldn't fit in my mini MISTI that I usually use. And here it is, all stamped out. This is my second stamping of this image because the first time I did it, I used way too much ink and it got really, really dark. I allowed the ink to dry, and now I'm going in with the stencils and some of the ink from the kit. I just taped the stencil in place, and I'm coloring in the petals with this beautiful yellow ink. This one is called Citrine, and it's one of their positively saturated inks. I love their new inks. And then after I've gone over all of the petals, I'm kind of avoiding the centers and just putting the ink down on the petals. But after I'm done with this stencil, I can peel up the tape and I'll put on stencil number 2. With this one, you can ink up the stems. This ink pad is called Perfection. This is a really fast way to color in your images. And of course, you don't have to use the stencils if you don't want to. You can just color them in however you'd like with your colored pencils or your Copics. But I wanted to give the stencils a try. Okay, next layer is going to be the leaves. And I'm just using the same ink, the Perfection, for them. I like to stick pretty closely to what is included in the kit. But of course, you can bring in a darker green ink if you'd like, or a lighter. And then the last layer colors in the centers, which I didn't understand too much because they're already inked in pretty well. So I'm just using this brush. I didn't add any more ink to it, but this is my brown brush that I use for my brown inks. And here it is, all done. Isn't that beautiful? So this is going to be kind of a 2-for-1 card. I'm going to slice this down the middle. Then I have 2 panels that I can use. I'm only going to use the panel on the right, but I'm going to come in with a Copic marker. This is a B0000, which is a really light blue, and just go around the stems. This will create kind of a blue haze around the image. It looks really pretty. I am going to skip ahead here. And then I'll go around the last little flower bud. And you could even come in with a darker blue if you'd like. But I really liked this pale blue. And then here it is, all done. Next, I'll stamp out the sentiment. And this one says, "Get well soon." And there you can see the opposite side of the paper that I stamped way too dark. So I didn't want to waste the paper, so I just flipped it and tried my stamping again. I'm adding this to a piece of the burnt orange cardstock. I love this color of cardstock. I have some of this in my stash. And then I'll add a few Scrappy Tells Crafts yellow pearls. These go well with your fall time cards. I'll add this to another white top folding card base. And then for another touch of fun, I'm bringing in my glossy accents. I'm just going over the centers of these flowers with the glossy accents. This looks really opaque now, but it will dry clear. And I'll just add another shiny element to the card. And here's a close-up look at the finished card. The blue outline to the flowers doesn't show up very well here. In real life, it's a little more dark blue. Card number 3 is going to be a mini slimline card. And I cut out a piece of the burnt orange cardstock. I believe I cut it down to 3 1/4 by 6 1/4. I'm stamping this sunflower cluster in the center of this. I love using colored pencils on colored cardstock. Just makes the images pop. So I'm using another yellow colored pencil to very quickly and simply color in the petals. I'm not pressing down too hard. These polychromos pencils put down some really nice, rich color on this colored cardstock. And again, I'm not carrying it out to the very tips of each petal. On this piece, I'm just going to be using 1 yellow and 1 green polychromos pencil, so it's very simple coloring. I chose kind of a light green pencil so that it would show up on this darker cardstock. It just gives you a hint of green on these stems and leaves. Actually, this piece of cardstock measures 3 by 6. But once I'm done, I'm going to mat it with a piece of sunshine cardstock. And so the whole card ends up being 3 1/4 by 6 1/4. I'll put this in my mini MISTI and stamp out the sentiment that says Autumn Blessings. So this is a very simple card. I'll use some dot liner to attach it to the yellow cardstock. My paper didn't cut very well. I think I need a new blade in my paper trimmer. Next, I can attach it to the card base of the same size. I go back and forth between dot liner and glue. I love them both and use them both a lot. And then for a finishing touch, I'm going to use some gems. These are from Pretty Pink Posh. I think they're called Harvest Mix, and I've had them in my stash for ages. I don't know if they're available or not, but I just liked the yellows and the browns and the greens. And here it is, all done. I love the color scheme of this card. That burnt orange cardstock is just gorgeous. Now for card number 4. I think this one is my favorite of the set that I create in this video. I'm going to do this little trio of sunflowers. And this time I'm going to stamp it up with some Copic Friendly ink from Simon Says Stamp. This is just called Intense Black. I do have to stamp it up a few times to build up the color. And I stamped it onto a piece of colored pencil paper. I was originally going to use colored pencils again, but I decided to use my Copics. And this wasn't the best choice for Copics. It doesn't bleed or anything, but it just soaks up a lot of the ink. But I didn't want to restamp it. I wanted to use what I did already. I used a Spellbinders arch die to cut out a piece of the burnt orange. And then I go ahead and color these with my Copic markers and fussy cut them out. And I think that's going to look really pretty at the bottom of this arch die cut. So the sentiment I'm going to heat emboss using some cream colored cardstock. This is some Versamark ink, which is a nice clear sticky ink. And then this cream colored cardstock came from a previous Simon Says Stamp kit. I love this stuff. It's just a pretty touch for fall even. Let's melt this. This is going to say, "Get well soon." And then again, using the inks that came in the kit, I'm using the yellow just to kind of darken the edges. You could probably skip this part. I just wanted to see what it would look like on this burnt orange cardstock. And it just darkens it a tad. So we'll put this arch onto a piece of this dark green cardstock. And the dark green I'm going to actually attach to another piece of the cream. This will add some pretty matting to this card. Let's go ahead and attach it to the white card base and get that ready to go. And the arch I'll put down with more dot liner. And then the floral pieces, I'm going to pop up with some foam squares. This looks so pretty under the sentiment. And then I did stamp it out twice so that I could cut out this single flower in the center. And I fussy cut it right to the black lines. And this will just make it pop up even more. This will make it look a little more 3D. I think that's so pretty. I'll add more of the Scrappy Tells Crafts yellow pearls. And I add a bunch to this card. And here it is all done. I love the burnt orange and the dark green together. They look so pretty. For my last card, I'm actually going to be making 4 cards using different cardstocks. I couldn't decide which cardstock to use in this gorgeous embossing folder. So I used some Dune, it's like a craft. I used brushed gold, isn't that beautiful? I used some pale yellow. And I used just a piece of white. And I'm going to be doing different techniques on each of these panels. I'll start out with the yellow, the light yellow panel. And first I'm going to stamp out the sentiment that says, "Sending sunshine," and more of the brown ink. And then I'm going to blend over some of the yellow ink that came in the kit. I'm just going to use a blending tool to do this. I like using the blending tools because it's easier just to pick up the very edges of the design. It doesn't get into all of the grooves like a brush could. And I'm just applying it very softly so it just catches the edges. And this brings out the pattern really nicely. I love this look. And it's so fast and easy to do. Let me finish up at the top corner here. And you could, of course, use different inks for each type of flower, but I just wanted to use the yellow to make it really simple. I'll use some dot liner on the card base this time. I don't want to flatten the embossing on the yellow cardstock. And last, I'm going to add a few gold pearls around the sentiment. So this one is my favorite of the 4 cards that I created using this embossing folder, but I am going to quickly show you what I did with the other 3. So here's the first one. The white embossed panel, I used a little bit of the Perfection at the corners, stamped out my sentiment and put some red pearls. The craft cardstock, I used some Copic markers and just quickly went over the daisies. And the last one's the simplest of all. I just put a sentiment up at the top. I thought that brushed gold just brought out the embossing beautifully. It didn't need anything else. I hope you enjoyed this video today. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you get a chance to sit down and create some fun cards of your own. Take care, my crafty friends. Bye.